We good?
Okay, looks like we're ready. All right, hey everybody, my name is Alan Gonzalez. I'm a transportation planner with Arlington County DES. This is the May meeting of the Bicycle Advisory Committee, hosted on May 12th, 2025. And I will pass it off to Cynthia Palmer, who is the chair of the committee.
Thank you so much. Welcome, everybody. We're going to start out by introducing ourselves and then answering the following question. Are there any vehicle design features that you are hoping will be part of tonight's vehicle safety discussion? And it's fine if you mention things that others have already mentioned, just to get a sense of the room, like what people are interested in hearing about. I have been wanting for years and years to have this discussion and to talk specifically about side underride guards, which have the capacity to save lives on large vehicles and trucks. So I'm just thrilled to be talking about side underride guards and anything else like cameras and alert systems and so on. That would be icing on the cake. So shall we go down the list and let's see who's here. All right, the second person listed is Ben Baldwin.
Yep, my name is Ben Baldwin. I am a DES management specialist, analyst, and I used to be part of the safety team. And I guess I'm the resident design cool things on the vehicles guy for DES at least.
Excellent, thank you. And Brian Shelton.
Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Brian Shelton. I'm the active transportation planner in DES TPCPM.
Wonderful. And Dana.
Yeah, I would say probably the only thing we really want to do is encourage more electric vehicles because by and large, they're smaller.
They're smaller?
As long as we're not counting cyber trucks
Okay.
or those big F-150s.
Yeah. Okay. Alwyn.
Hey everyone, this is Alan Gonzalez. I'm a transportation planner with Arlington County DES, and I also serve as the staff liaison in the BAC.
Thank you. Justin.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Justin Corwin. I'm the Safety Program Coordinator for DES. I came and talked to you guys probably about 6 years ago. A lot has changed since then, so excited to have this conversation.
Thank you so much. Excited to have you here. Andrew.
Hey, Andrew Martin, Arlington Heights neighborhood, vehicle safety features, I guess, yeah, EVs, but for tailpipe emissions, don't like breathing those fumes, and then lower hood heights for better visibility.
Good one. All right, Mary.
Hi, I'm Mary Delau with Bike Arlington. I live in Bluemont, and I am curious about systems that can detect bicyclists in your blind spot. And I know they exist, and since crashes often occur because the driver says that he or she couldn't see the cyclist, I want to know more about that. And I know on my car, I certainly have a blind spot detector. If I'm going to merge, it will alert me if there's a car coming, but I don't think that's the same thing. I think it's something separate. So that would interest me.
Oh, very cool. I don't think I have one of those. Noreen.
Hi, everybody. I'm Noreen Hannigan, and I don't have a great answer for you, but I'm glad you said that we could repeat what other people said, because I also like the idea of having those blind spot detectors and backup cameras and things like that. And I'm curious, I don't know a lot about the what you were talking about, Cynthia, the what do you call it?
The side
The side
underride
guard.
guards. Yeah.
I don't know a lot about that, so I'm curious to learn about it tonight.
Wonderful. Pam.
Find my mic to unmute. I'm Tam Van Hyren. I'm the PAC recording chair, recording secretary, and I will ask for intelligent speed assistance on all devices everywhere, including county vehicles.
Wonderful. Thank you for coming. And Steve.
Hi, I'm Steve Offit. I live in the courthouse neighborhood, and I cannot wait for the day when all cars are driven autonomously. You know, human drivers never get any better, but every 6 months, those autonomous cars get better and better and better and better. And even now, I think they're safer than human drivers by and large. So get rid of the humans, and the cars will be a lot safer.
Okay, so here's a dumb question. Do we have autonomous cars on
Oh
Arlington
yeah,
roads?
there's not in the DC area, but in several other cities, there are taxi services that are driven by autonomous vehicles. Yeah, and they're coming, and the faster they come, the better. If you look around at the ghost bikes that you see here and there, with maybe one exception, none of those would be there if those vehicles have been driven autonomously. Autonomous cars have no blind spots. They're looking in all directions all the time, all at once. Right? They don't have to swivel their head one way and then the other. They're already looking in both directions at the same time. And they don't have road rage. They don't speed. Like all the things that get cyclists injured and killed, autonomous cars fix.
Interesting. Okay, we should talk about those some more. And I see that Jillian is here now.
Yeah, sorry, I am late, and I'm with the family, so I can't be on video the whole time. But yes, Jillian Burgess, live in Cherrydale, and I will settle for speed limiting cars the same way we speed limit scooters as my wish.
I like that. All right. Did I miss anybody? I think we got everyone. All right. So we are so pleased to have Justin Corwin here to talk about Arlington County vehicle safety measures. The floor is yours.
Cool. And I'll be relying on Ben a little bit because Ben worked for me in this capacity, but he's in this new position now. But much of the fleet safety stuff and adding new features to vehicles, that is wrapped up in his current position. So when we talk about what we've implemented so far, particularly on some of these newer features, I'm going to have him chime in. So let me share my screen here. So last time I came and talked to you all, we were just kind of getting started with putting technology into the vehicles. And I remember there was a lot of ideas thrown around at that time. One of those is the side guards. I remember hearing that before. The question I posed to the group back then was, well, if we have a limited budget, and what I'm pushing for is camera systems to affect driver behaviors, and that's a very expensive program. Would you rather have that or the side guards? And the general consensus in the group was kind of, well, you'd probably rather have the cameras in the vehicles, especially proactive cameras that are identifying unsafe behaviors that we can solve before it hits somebody. So that'll be the majority of what we talk about, is how we rolled that out. That is implemented. But I do want to hit some of these other things that we've implemented in the last couple of years. One is some of these side guards are in place. Ben, I'll chime you in if you want to talk about some of the newer things we put in on those first 4 slides.
Yeah, so to start with the lateral protective devices as the technical name, or side guards. Currently we have, actually, I think it's 5 units that are either in processing into the fleet. I believe 1 is actually in the fleet already. But they have them on there as the, you know, per that VOLP national, kind of that kind of drive from the Vision Zero activity. So we started talking about that in 2018, I think. I got some rolled eyes from some DS folks, but after a while we got it in there, and I think actually Greg was the one who had to push it through. But we got a couple of those in there. They're not terribly expensive. We have some concerns about how our operations will impact their design, but currently they're on there. They're working. They'll be on the vehicles and they roll out for the first time in the next couple weeks. But yeah, that's the lateral side guards.
So the idea there is, as we replace vehicles, that we would implement more of these things. That's kind of where we're at with that, Ben.
Yeah, as the vehicle design allows. So there's some
Yeah.
restraint. Like in this case, if you're very detail oriented, you can see on the left there's a gap, and there's a gap there because there's an outrigger. So it's kind of come areas like that where we've got different issues and concerns where it's like we can't do certain things in some places. But here, if you had an underride event where let's say you were getting um, somebody who's driving, across a median and cut it too tight, it would obviously keep and push you out of the way, so you wouldn't end up underneath those tires as long as you weren't back there by the outrigger, which would be that's a vehicle design as a whole thing, not just the side guards.
Yeah, and just so everyone understands, like, when you're talking about implementing technology on the vehicles, where you want to prioritize is what would prevent us from hitting somebody in the first place. Uh, that's where you'd get the most bang for your buck. So that might explain why some of the other things we've implemented ahead of time is because we're trying to prevent the hit in the first place. And to my knowledge, I don't think we've hit a bicyclist in my time in DES, so that's a good thing. But we are starting to roll these out because we are kind of running out of those proactive prevent the hit things. So we can throw some money at some of these. All right, we're hitting somebody. How can we reduce the impact of that? And I know that's really important to you guys to prevent that from going under the wheels. I think Jillian has her hand up, and Jillian, I think I remember you in the previous meeting. You might have been there in the past, so happy to hear from you.
Yeah.
You might have been the
Thanks.
chair
Yeah,
last time, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I've
Yeah.
been around for a few years.
Yes.
But the just to your last point about like collisions haven't actually happened. I'm not sure if that's the best metric. I know recently
Yeah.
I was almost hit when I was biking by a police officer, and the only reason that I wasn't hit was because of actions I took.
Yeah, I know,
So
right?
but
Yeah, I understand.
when we're talking
Trust
about
me.
success,
I know you guys are under the gun
yeah.
out there, and there's lots of close calls. Believe me, I know. Trust me, I'm not blind to these issues. Okay. So let's keep going. We also have getting to like seeing stuff in your blind spot. So one of the things we have implemented to some of our bigger vehicles is the 360 camera. And Ben, do you want me to show this video first and then you'll speak to it? Or how do you?
You can just play it while I'm talking. That's kind of how I queued it up.
I'll do that.
So hopefully it plays. It looks like it's
I'm
trying
gonna
to
make
stream.
it bigger.
Okay, there we go. So yeah, this is our Brigade BAC i360 cameras that we currently have. I think we're up to like 7 or 8 of them. We just installed them actually on our new trailers for our leaf mulch hauling trucks, basically that haul the leaf mulch from 26th Street or out to different areas where we sell the leaf mulch off to or give the leaf mulch off to. So in this case, this is a brush truck, the one you just saw us had before, with that 360 camera on it. And trust me, I'm doing my best to hold it up while somebody drives, and I'm in the passenger seat, so my arms fully extended. I apologize for the jittery. But those 360 cameras have come in fairly well. Our first introduction was on a trash truck. I think back in 2018, and then this is one of our latest ones now, and probably kind of the coolest ones because, as you can see there, if you take a left turn, the left camera turns on. If you take a right turn with the turn signal, the right camera turns on. So it's just like your high-end, kind of sportsy car, but in a, brush truck.
Okay. And I know you have some language on there about it's not ideal for dump trucks. You want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so these kind of units require kind of an overhead kind of camera positioning. So like on a pickup truck, that's kind of easy. But when we've got dump trucks with articulating bodies or dump trucks with things that are going to get loaded into them from the side. Actually, this brush truck is a concern of ours, and I think tomorrow one of my duties is to design a cover that doesn't let this camera get broken. But yeah, for dump trucks and some other units, I just said, the tractor, we actually had the choice of putting it on the tractor or the trailer. We went for the trailer because the trailer is obviously one that'll track over, medians, crosswalks, things like that a lot easier. It's better to have that view back there. But yeah, so there's some design issues with having them in certain things, and there's some where it's actually a really great thing. So we use a lot of what I would call situational cameras, where we'll have a camera somewhere like in a blind spot on a truck if we don't have this option. So I know our roll-offs have blind spots on each side, or not blind spots. They have cameras on each side for the driver. When he's driving down the road, he's got references he can see. They're not 360 cameras just because the way that truck works. There's no high point because the box comes off of it.
Okay.
I think I think
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
so is that just like a single camera in a certain location, or is it stitching multiple cameras screens together?
Yeah, this will be 4 cameras in this case that are stitched together, and then a kind of generic overhead. They had one that was really close to our brush trucks. It looks like it. Even one of the mechanics thought it was a picture of it. But yeah, just the 4, like you kind of get in a Cadillac or something like that, where they're all stitched together. You can kind of see how it has its distortion just from the height of it. But yeah, that's it. And you can actually add more on the tractor. Like I said, we actually have 5. We have an extra one when they disconnect from the truck. They still have a camera, or the trailer. Sorry.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay. This was rolled out pretty long time ago, but the idea behind here is the backup alarms on our big vehicles, getting away from the beeping. We felt at the time that the beeping kind of fades into the background. People were just too used to it. And we found that the white noise backup alarms, they broke through the static of the hum of the city, I guess, in a way. So it just helps. It helps alert folks around, and also it doesn't penetrate the windows of the residents as well. So the idea is that they're quieter to the people it should be quieter to, but stand out to the people that are in the area that they can actually get hit by the car backing up or the equipment backing up. Anything else you want to say about that, Ben?
No, I think this is my first pet project in the world of vehicle safety stuff. I think this is my little tiny one I did by myself. But yeah, the white noise one's out there. We've got them. It's standard now on our vehicles. It's supposed to be. I would say trash trucks, they're not allowed to. There's an industry standard in there that overrides it and makes it have a multi-tonal backup alarm, and so people can be more aware when things are going on. But yeah, this is, like I said, probably one of my first pet projects before the next one.
Okay, let's keep going.
You can play this. Did you play the sound or no? Sorry.
I could if you want me to.
I just didn't know if anybody knew.
Let me share with sound. I might have to stop sharing. Share, include sound. Okay, let me know if you can hear it.
Yep.
That work?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so that's what that sounds like.
All right, so this is actually probably another one of the ones that I brought along. This is called the Bendix Wingman. There's Bendix Wingman and there's Bendix Fusion. There's a couple different series of autonomous braking, side object detection systems that the company called Bendix, a brake manufacturer, integrates into their equipment. So we've got these on, I think we're on 7 or 8 different trucks now. A lot of these are forward-looking autonomous braking, so we get a lot of, hey, the truck stopped, and it's like, oh, we watched the video and we saw that you were approaching somebody very fast and it slowed down. Oh, but I had time. No, you didn't. It was slowing down because it knew you were going to do something wrong. Or you were cutting the exit ramp too tight and you went over the white line and the truck said, I don't think so. And it hit the brakes for you so you don't roll off the roadway. So that's the the enhanced autonomous emergency braking system. It also does help with stationary units, and there is some functionality in there that can tie into the next part, which is the side object detection. which in this case, it's mainly for vehicles and things like that, but it does alert the driver. There is another system that I was texting Justin or messaging Justin as you guys were talking that is from the same company that we have the cameras from, Brigade, which involves side scan, which is a pedestrian and bicyclist scanning product that has a little bit of an AI function now. That is something we are looking into as a other option. Just so you know, some of these are kind of cutting edge, new for commercial trucks. And I would say like our 360 cameras, we had to have the installer come out to our, you know, equipment shop and do the installs because we can't even do those ourselves. They have to get calibrated. They have to get installed by the manufacturer. So that way they've got everything set up and right. The same thing with the side scan. So that's why a lot of these, they take that replacement cycle that Justin was talking about to get. But yeah, so that's the Bendix Wingman, and that's autonomous braking, which we've had multiple times. It's got a autonomous cruise control function in there as well. So our highway trucks, that's really where we focus this on, is our trucks that are going up and down 95 or out to down to Maryland to go to the dump sites.
Okay. And before I get to the drive cam program, I do want to speak to one of the I forget your name, whoever was talking about they want to switch to electric vehicles. The county has done that on a pretty decent scale. I know you didn't want to include F-150s on there, but I know we bought a lot of Nissan Leafs. Ben, do you have an idea how many we bought recently? Like how many we have of those? I feel like
Oh,
we
I'd
had a
say there's
ton
over
recently.
40 Nissan Leafs in the fleet right now, I
Yeah,
would
yeah.
say. So yeah, Nissan Leafs. The pickup trucks is much as you guys would like to say it, but I can't fix water meters in a Nissan Leaf. So the guys need pickup trucks, but they are electric now. We are going all that way. We
Yeah.
did some really enhanced upfitting in-house for some electric transits, so they have other functionality. We've got the DHS mental health vehicle that we just recently finished, which isn't actually one like that, but it does have some of those camera functions on it. But we do have a couple of transits, one for TE&O I know of that we added extra functions to that's electric. It actually has a fun feature if they used it that it can actually charge itself off solar, but I don't think they use it.
Cool. So that's an overview of some of the newer things we put in place. Some of the smaller projects. Go ahead, Jillian. I see your hands up.
Yeah, thank you. So a couple questions on the fleet on fleet management. One of the things that was put into the budget a couple years ago was adding some e-bikes to the fleet. And one of the things that I know BAC was particularly, the Fiscal Affairs Advisory Commission was particularly interested in, was seeing performance measures and readouts of the various pilot projects and uses of lots of things, including EVs and the e-bikes. So do you
Yeah.
guys have that information?
I don't have the information on the e-bikes and the EVs because we're DES specific. So e-bikes and EVs in general, that's a county-wide initiative. So I definitely don't have the county-wide metrics on that. I could try and figure out who would have those. I imagine that the transportation folks would have that, but I don't personally have that information for you.
I know they had
Okay,
four
I thought you guys.
e-bikes. They had four
Yeah.
e-bikes, I think, that were purchased, 4 or 5. I actually in-serviced one with a GPS on it that I think they ended up taking the GPS out of because we were trying to use it for tracking mileage and location and things like that. But I know we bought 4, and I know they talked about getting some down at trades for staff, and I think Watershire Streets might have got one or we'll be getting one for
Didn't we
staff
put?
moving around.
Didn't most of them go near the Bosman building, the ones that were in
Yes.
place before? Okay.
Yep.
I think
They're
I
down there
remember
with
hearing
the
about that.
the rental fleet stuff.
Okay. So apparently Ben
Yeah.
knows more than I do on it. So go ahead, Julie. Did you have another
Okay.
question on it? Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, it would be great to figure out who to ask about that and to get just a public, like, how's that going? Is it replacing? Are we saving money that way? It seems logical that we would save money that way, but it would also seem logical that there's a maximum amount. So if
Yeah.
we invested in more things, if we had more e-bikes, more cargo bikes, more whatever, is that a good thing? Is that Is that not? And then also with the EVs, those cost more than the gas cars, especially when you factor in installing chargers. And so are we getting good bang for our buck there? What are we seeing with like maintenance costs and stuff like that?
Yeah, I
And
definitely don't have
use
the
are,
hard numbers on that, but I know the Equipment Bureau could probably pull the numbers on the maintenance cost, especially. So that's something Ben could probably tag the Equipment Bureau on, but they don't run the e-bike program, so I don't know who I would ask for that. Ben, any other
Okay.
thoughts on that?
For the e-bikes, that's Adam Kalawi was kind of
Is
running
that
that charge.
facilities? Okay.
Facilities, and then for just in general for like the Nissan Leafs and the Lightnings and stuff. I mean, in the end, foregoing any warranty repairs or warranty work on the vehicle that needs to go to, they're very light on. I think the biggest thing we found is we use tires faster. That's about it. And I think the Ford rep summed it up the greatest. He was like, "You'll never replace the brakes in the life cycle that we have because of the auto regeneration, where it basically turns on the generator backwards and runs and charges the battery off of it. That the brakes just never get scraped up. So there's lots of savings in maintenance, hazardous materials, things like that, like oils and hydraulics."
Yeah, I mean, if you guys want to put together some specific questions and send them to the Arlington reps that run or are part of your advisory committee, I'm sure we can get you those specific answers with the numbers.
Yeah, I mean, and it would just be great to have it publicly, for transparency. This being government and all
Right.
taxpayer funded.
It makes sense to me, for
and
sure.
then, yeah, and then I don't know if you're going to get to this, but one thing that I was surprised in the presentation about safety devices, for my, on my personal vehicle for insurance, I have a thing that monitors speed and braking and like hard braking and stuff.
Yeah. So we
do
have
you guys
AVL
have
systems
those
in
on the
every
fleets and do
vehicle. It
stuff like that?
monitors speed. It monitors when they brake. It monitors idling as well. We have those things. That's across the county now. So that's another thing that we have.
And do you guys look at them? Like, is there a program? Have you guys
Oh,
put out
yeah.
summary statistics of like how
There's
it's
a program.
going?
There's a program. It's we're talking 600 county vehicles at any given time that are in the system. Every supervisor that I can think of between CPHD to DES to DHS has access to that system. It is a wealth of information. It's probably too much information is one of the problems. Because like Justin was saying, you can see speed and this, but I can see what gear you were in if you opened the front door, and I can see if you're wearing your seatbelt. So there's a lot of information in there for us for after accident reviews or just driver performance. If there's complaints, we can see lots of things that tell us that stuff. Providing summary data is not something I've been targeted to do because we're trying to run the program kind of, keep it moving. But I've never really had an ask of summary information, things like that.
Yeah.
So
I mean, go
it
ahead.
proactive at all, or is it all reactive? Is it all complaint based, or do you proactively say like, is there something that says, oh, this driver consistently speeds or consistently is a hard breaker, we need to go talk to that person?
So the proactive piece for DES is really in the drive cam system, and the AVL stuff feeds into that. But if you're talking about other departments, it would largely be reactive, with the exception of idling. I know that is a flag. The hard braking, I don't think there's any proactive things measuring that for drivers throughout the county. The speeding's interesting because with the AVL, the AVL system would have to know exactly what the speed limits are around in each um, in each road.
But Justin, before you jump there, it
Yeah, go
does.
ahead.
It knows.
What's that?
It
Okay,
knows.
well, great.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, in DES, we have we're trying to get to the proactive piece through the drive cam. So not only is it the AVL system, but we have the video footage to back up the observation that they're speeding. And I also know that the county's rolled out a lot of the speed cameras and the red light cameras over the last 5 years. We have tons more of those now. So there's plenty of proactive stuff trying to eliminate speeding. Definitely.
Right, but I mean, we have more, but it's still a very low number for the number of miles of our streets. And they're restricted in how many and where they can be. So if you're not near a school, you're not going to be caught on a speed camera.
All right. So we have the drive cam system. It would catch speeding. So that's the other piece I'd like to get to and show you what that looks like.
Okay, great.
Okay. I think Andrew, you got one for me? You got a question for me?
Yeah, since I assume they're kind of separate umbrellas, is there any crosstalk with like the fire department or art for like some of these safety features that you're implementing, like lessons learned and best practices?
We have a vehicle incident review committee that's countywide. So every department sees all the incidents that we have in the rest of the departments. So we do share information that way. On the art bus system, it's a little bit different because that's a contractor. But I know that they've implemented a lot of technology into the art bus systems as well. But we typically don't see that information.
Does the countywide include the police?
The police is interesting. They're part of the vehicle incident review committee, but they have their own discipline process for it. I'm not really privy to what that looks like. But they are part of the incident review committee, so they do see our incidents, we see theirs. So we share information that way. But oftentimes with police, the vehicle incidents they're often so specific to being in pursuit of other people. There's not a lot to learn from that on a DES standpoint, other than just like anybody else, they back into a lot of stuff. So we share that concern. But a lot of their incidents, just like fire, it's usually in the call, right, with lights going on. So DES doesn't really have that particular dynamic. But we do see those incidents. We review them as a countywide. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it doesn't mesh with my experience. I see lots of unsafe driving by police vehicles that have no lights on. And when they have lights on, it's almost like they're hyper vigilant.
All I can say is I understand. To be fair, public safety, police, fire, they have the most vehicle incidents out of all the departments for sure. I think I got two hands up from Cynthia. Go ahead, Cynthia.
It just means I'm second.
Oh, you're
Dana
second.
was
Oh, is that what
first.
that means?
Yeah.
My bad. All right. Well, Dana, do you want to go first? And I guess you're first then. I see you got one up.
Yeah, sure. Where's all this stuff posted? How do you publish the data? And what's visible to the public?
Good question. I don't know. Ben, you want to mention anything like that? Is anything available to the public as far as the back end of the data?
I mean, typically they've seen it in like snow events. Like if you see the snow event tracker where they've got snow plows, that's actually our GPS data being fed into it in a 5-minute delay or something like that. But the data is based in the contractor's system, which is the same contractor that like the State Department uses. So it's all in there, but I don't. It's you got to realize it's a ton of data. It's not like.
No, I'm saying more specifically,
I think vehicle incident data is reported to the county board as part of the annual probably the annual budget requests. I know we provide the incident data as DS as a department. So I believe that's reported up through that, and then that's shared in those public meetings. That's the one thing I can think of.
So it's part of your budget request?
I think we do like it's been a while since I sat through one of those budget meetings, but they do ask for the incident data every year. Vehicle incidents are reported up. I believe they share that with the county board members. I would imagine that if there's the best way to pull all that information together would actually be at the risk management level because they would have access to all the county info. I'm not sure if they are requested to report that up to the county board. Okay, Cynthia.
Thank you. So, I have actually three questions, but maybe I can be really quick and maybe you can merge them together in your answer. Um, one, I mean, I'm really thrilled to hear that you're like testing all these different technologies and you have like 5 of these and 6 of these, 7 of these, whatever.
Yeah.
And then you said the number 600 county vehicles. And I'm just wondering, like, are are these like 6 or 7 or 8? Are they like the most dangerous situations and you went for those first, or are they like you're testing them out? Are they a drop in the bucket? Are they is this an area that we should like campaign for you all for more money and talk to the county manager and say like we have only 6 or 7 and we really
Yeah.
want 600? Sort of, I don't have the perspective that you all have.
Yeah, I understand. I think it's important to remember that I'm just DES, and we're talking about DES numbers. That 800 vehicles, that includes every department, and many of those, what would you say, Ben? Maybe the majority of those vehicles are fire and police. So it's a very different discussion.
Which
The
anything
safety
we
features on those are very distinct, right?
Yeah.
So we're really talking about in DES, how many vehicles do we have? What would you say, Ben? Just rough.
200.
200, right? And a lot of them are, passenger cars, just normal, low to the ground passenger cars. So when we're talking about rolling out uh, some of these other features, the backup alarms, even the underguards, and the backup and the 360 cameras, we're really talking about our larger CDL vehicles. And how many do we have of those? I think 120, maybe. Ben,
Yeah,
do you get?
it's about right.
120, but that includes backhoes and that kind of thing, doesn't it?
It might not anymore. I think you're probably right there.
Yeah. So that's more to give you a little bit more perspective on
We
those.
have the same. So like if you talk about like the Lightnings, which we talked about pickup trucks before, the Lightnings come with backup cameras. They come with ultrasonic backup sensors. They come with many standard features which a commercial truck just either can't have or we have to specially go out and get it for it, which is what we're talking about. Is we're going out there and getting these things on the contracts when we buy the vehicle. Which I mean, these are like these. We said 7. One of them I know is actually one of them would be 8 in one of the categories, and we ordered that vehicle 2.5 years ago because the manufacturer takes that long to get us a vehicle, and we were doing these at life cycle replacements, not at like a proactive basis, just because of the cost basis of the unit. If we've got to pull it early, that's a lot of money to have to make up.
So the features that we're talking about that have like less than 10 rolled out is because those are the newer implementations. We're either actively piloting it or it's rolled into as we replace those vehicles, it'll be part of the new features. But the ABL systems that we're talking about are in every vehicle, and the drive cam program that I'm going to talk about right now is in every CDL vehicle. And the backup alarms, the white noise thing, that's in every vehicle. We could do it, as Ben was talking about. The solid waste vehicles don't have them because there's like a federal standard that says we can't use those on those. So everything else is more widely adopted. But particularly on the AI features, I mean, this is evolving technology, and we're pushing into that space as much as we can, as fast as we can. So that's why the numbers seem low for some of those newer things. So I wanted to get through some of the newer things that we've done, but these things that we've rolled out more broadly, particularly the drive cam thing, is because we've been doing it many years. We've already piloted it, and so it's broadly put out there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's so helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
And number 2 and number 3, just really quick. You were talking about ART being a contractor, so like you might not have as much sort of control over what they do, I guess. But
Yeah.
I'm just wondering is this something in the future you're thinking of, like building certain safety features into contracts, or maybe you already do that, or sort of how does the contract
I know
situation?
I'm pretty sure, 99% sure the art bus systems already have a camera system in the thing. Um, I know that they also have backup alarms. Pushing into the contract some of the AI features that are coming into play. Um, it might be the case where the aftermarket vendors there's not as much availability out there for those big art buses or the WMATA buses, just because the customer base isn't as big as maybe some of the going into just CDL vehicles. So I'm not sure, but obviously, anytime that we renew a contract for the art bus, we have an opportunity to put new requirements in there. And I'm always tagged in for feedback when we renew those things. I'm not sure when the next contract negotiation is, but typically when that comes through, I'm always asked, is there anything that I'd like to see in the contract? I've always pushed for, the latest stuff that I know of. WMATA has been using DriveCam for a long time, for example. So there's no reason why ArtBus shouldn't
I
have some version of a camera system
just
to stop behaviors. Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, just to probably get myself in trouble somewhere, because somebody will get mad at my statement here. But there are 115 yellow boxes that drive around that don't do anything like what we're doing.
So you're saying if they want to really, they should go after the school system a little bit, is what you're saying.
The school system has turned their back on anything I've ever tried to suggest in the last 4 years and
Okay.
said, no, we don't want to do that. No, we don't want to do that.
So Ben's trying not to throw them under the bus, but it is worth pointing out that the school bus system, yes, the Equipment Bureau in DES maintains the buses. That is true. But as far as who gets to decide the technology it goes in them and who purchases the buses and who manages those drivers is actually a completely different organization than the county. The school system has a completely different governmental body that all floats up through. So we have very limited influence on what they do with the school buses. All we can do is fix them. So what he's saying there is you might get a lot of if you invite that group in and ask them these questions, there might be a lot more room for improvement, and maybe that's a better use of you guys' influence. I think that's what he's saying. But nice way to put it. By the way, I mean the school buses. I'll tell you this: the school bus drivers, from my perspective, they are pretty professional, and typically in the past they've done better than our drivers on like seatbelt use and that kind of thing. So I'm not trying to throw them under the bus too much, but on technology side, there might be a lot of room for improvement that you guys could influence them. And as Ben was saying, he's attempted to influence them. They've turned him down on some of the new features we've rolled out. So, yeah, so hopefully that answers your question. That might be a good step 2 for this kind of discussion, is to invite some school reps on the bus system.
That sounds very worthwhile. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So I know I'm running out of time. I'm supposed to end at 7:55. Is it okay if I go a little bit over? I don't want to be. I just need to know if I have to rush. Is that okay?
No, go
Okay.
for it.
Okay. Because I assume there might be some questions. All right. So the drive cam system. So the idea again is to try and get away from, the reactive stuff and getting into the proactive, actually identifying the unsafe driver behaviors and stopping those before it leads to collision. And the way to do that is through these active camera systems. So we rolled out the DriveCam program back in 2017. We piloted it. Okay. But that was a little bit reactive in the sense that the cameras only capture footage when there was what's called a G-force event. So if we hit something, that's a G-force event. If we make a sharp turn, that's a G-force event. If we slam on the brakes, that's a G-force event. In those cases, the camera would turn on. It would capture about 15 seconds, and then it would go to the third-party vendor. They would review it, and if there's any driver behaviors that need to be coached, or if it's egregious enough, disciplined, that led to those G-force events, we would have that. We would have that ability. So you can imagine, collisions. I think that makes a lot of sense. But we always usually know when they hit something because there's an incident report. There's damage to the vehicle that they can't hide. But how many near misses were we having where they were slamming on the brakes and they didn't hit anybody and they could just get away with it? They didn't have to tell anybody. Well, now if they slam on the brakes and almost hit somebody, a bicyclist, a pedestrian, another car, we see that footage. We can see what they were doing. We can see if they were following too close. We can see because the camera looks outside. It also looks inside the cab. So we can see if they were on their cell phone. We can see if they're on, if they're not wearing their seatbelt. So we can address those behaviors even before we hit anything. So that's how that program worked for a long time. Very, very, very impactful. We had an opportunity. I'll get to you, Noreen, in a second. I'll answer your question in a second. We had an opportunity recently because all of the camera units inside the vehicles were upgraded to 5G, right? So the cell phone network, which is how it operates, required those all to be upgraded. Well, the upgrade came with some new AI type features. And so we're starting to pilot those right now. And I want to talk about what those look like as well. So before I show you like the latest and greatest with those new features, those things that doesn't rely on the G-force events, it actually just sees if they do it at all using AI. So that's where we're piloting right now, and we're doing that actively. Noreen, go ahead. I see your hand is up.
Yeah, thanks. Just wondering how long are the images retained for, or the data retained for? Is it?
That's great. That's a great question.
A couple
They
of
don't.
days or whatever.
Yeah, we don't have it forever, but I think Ben, can you maybe speak to that? Is it 180 days or something like that?
You talking about the triggered events?
Yeah, the triggered events. How long does?
I believe I want to say it's 90 days.
90 days. Okay.
The actual
something like that.
footage from the triggered event is 90 days. The coaching file, the file that says like this event happened, is the life of the program. Like it's just a Word document kind of thing.
Right. So the video comes to, again, a third-party vendor. They review it. They identify what's the coachable behaviors. They send that to the supervisor to close out the coaching session. So the supervisor meets with the driver, and they coach. These are the things that these are the behaviors that need to be rectified in the future. And then if there's a discipline aspect to that, there's obviously a record of that as well. But the actual footage eventually goes away, and it sounds like about 90 days. But the record of the coaching event and the behaviors, that stays longer. That makes sense?
Yeah, that's. I was thinking it would be like a black box on an airplane or something, which is overwritten.
Yeah. So remember, it's just the coachable ones. For example, if we hit a pothole, that could technically be a G-force event if the pothole's kind of bad. If the video comes up and there's actually nothing coachable on it, that's going to go away. We'll never see it on the supervisor side. Yep.
Yeah, the supervisors won't see it. That any triggered event will still be there for that 90 days.
For the 90 days, okay.
And then we have a limited, like 1 week retention of the camera footage, like a 7-Eleven camera rolling over itself in the truck itself is kind of so you got to think like your own dash cam in your car has a limited time. We actually have a little limited space on that camera that does that as well.
Right. So, some of the results of that, the money spent on CDL vehicle repairs has dropped significantly since we've rolled out this program. That's largely because of reduction of unsafe behaviors. We've also had several exonerations where if we didn't have this camera system, it would be very easy to just assume our driver was at fault. For example, we had a car full of sheriff's deputies from California that came into our lane and hit us. Arlington County Police wrote our driver a ticket, but we could see through the camera that we were in our lane, we did nothing wrong. They drifted into us because they were lost, and so we were able to save that driver. So we had some positive ones too, of course. But we really like these new features that are available to us, and so I want to talk about those. So again, this is getting more into the AI thing. How do autonomous vehicles drive? Is because they're actively watching everything all the time and then responding to it. So this is utilizing a little bit of that technology. So now it's not G-force event driven for a couple things currently: rolling stops, critical distance, and lane departures. So every time our drivers do a rolling stop, if they do not stop at that stop sign, we are catching that now. So rolling stops are being clamped down on, and that's every time, not G-force driven. Critical distance, that's another thing. If we're following too closely, the thing's going to speak to the driver, don't follow too close. And then lane departure, if you start to drift out of your lane, it'll give you the audio alert. And I believe we prevented one of our drivers from hitting the side rail on the highway with this within the first week of rolling it out. Did I get my facts right on that, Ben? Am I remembering that correctly?
So let's just, yeah. So the first week of it accidentally being rolled out, yes, the
Yeah, that's
driver
right.
was driving down the highway and he almost hit the Jersey barrier. It did call him out and say, hey, lane departure, and give him kind of a warning, and he got back on the road.
Yeah, so
He
that's good
was
stuff because
sleepy.
sometimes it's not a driver behavior in the sense that they're actively driving back. They might fall asleep. And so that lane departure warning where the thing basically yells at him to get back in his lane, it might prevent a lot of incidents that way too if the driver is sleeping and is falling asleep. So I have some examples of how it works, just some mini videos to show.
Please stop at stop signs.
All right, so we have active feedback to the driver each time it happens. Plus, that's now a coachable event. All right, so that's kind of how it works. For the critical distance.
Critical distance.
Right. So yeah, so that's the outward facing kind of the AI features. We are piloting those right now. We started that in January of this year. The idea is that we'll check back in with our collective bargaining union and probably at the end of this month, review that. We have some other features that are more in-cab based that we'd like to roll out as well. We haven't done that yet because we promised them a check-in with the outward-facing ones. But eventually, and hopefully, this is where we'd like to get to, which is active AI views of inside the cab. We can measure for seatbelt use, and more importantly to you as bicyclists, probably the cell phone use. So it wouldn't be G-force driven if they use the cell phone while they're driving. The AI feature will pick that up. So just a real quick example of that.
Distracted.
Yeah, so it automatically gives them that verbal, warning. So they're giving immediate feedback. Plus, it's a coachable event. So that's where we'd like to get to. Those are the inward-facing, more AI, machine-driven camera features. We're hoping to roll that out in the later part of this year. Yeah. Okay. So I'll open up for questions. Go ahead, Cynthia.
Thank you. So interesting. So I was just curious, you mentioned checking with the collective bargaining unit.
Yes.
And I'm curious, like how are people reacting, and how is this
I think
working?
it's fair to say cameras make people uncomfortable, right? I think there's just a general creepiness factor. I think that's okay. I think it's okay to understand that. I will say that once we started to show the bargaining unit some of the events that we were stopping, it's actually going pretty well. There is a concern right now. I believe the union's saying that some of the units aren't doing the immediate feedback thing, so we're trying to actively work through that. But for the most part, despite the initial creepy factor of the camera, I think it's actually going pretty well. It's been a pretty positive thing. And as long as we can keep showing that what we're trying to do is first of all, I lean on the exonerations. That's a good thing for drivers, right? Money saved is another good thing for salaries, right? So, but the idea is that safer driving is better for the drivers as well. So it's not about discipline per se. It's about getting our drivers to drive safe so they go home safe. And that message is getting through, I think. Go ahead, Dana.
Yeah. Can you describe how you're coordinating with, for example, Alexandria? Because, if you both were testing stuff, sharing information and results would be pretty useful.
I hear you. As far as I know, we don't do any coordinating with Alexandria on these kind of things. It's not a bad idea.
A lot of these aren't tests. I would like to say, like our 360 camera thing is not a test. That's a program. If we identify a vehicle that could benefit from it, we do it. The automatic emergency braking, it's not really a test. If it's a vehicle that we can get it on that makes sense, we do it. I think we've changed to air disc brakes. We're doing that fleet wide. Like that's kind of an industry standard now. We're diving in wholeheartedly. So some of this is not testing. It's really just how we're managing our fleet.
Yeah, and I'll just say as far as other jurisdictions, I know that Fairfax has drive cam as well, implemented as well. So typically, what I've seen in this area, with the exception of Prince William counties, we kind of move generally in the same direction. So, and I know Amada has a version of drive cam too, or might have drive cam.
Can you give us a sense of how many of these incidents you're like triggering incidents or more than that you're finding?
Yeah, I don't have that data.
I've got some in front of me.
Okay, you want to give them like a general ballpark?
I'm just gonna pull a random number. So, the retention time I was wrong is 180 days. I apologize. I run the
See, I was
video.
right.
I run the video camera system as well, and some of that is longer or shorter.
Yeah.
So, or at least I run the side for DES for operations. In this case, I did 180 days of video, and we have 11,938 events in the system.
Right.
Not all
So
those have valuable information. I would say if I filter them right now to only coachable, in that 180-day period, we are down to, it's thinking.
it's worth noting that not all the events are violations of law or the policies. We do have like a whole section of events that are called blue events. They're coachable behaviors, but the lowest risk. Um, it's law abiding. It's not a violation. It's just we could turn you from an abiding driver to a better driver. So stuff like just scanning the roadways. Do they look slightly distracted? Do they look zoned out? Those kind of things are blue events. Again, it's not a violation of anything, but we are identifying and coaching that as well, just to try and get them to be greater drivers. Anything above that, where it's a violation of the policy or a violation of state law or local law, that there's discipline associated with that, generally speaking. But a lot of these things a lot of the behaviors identified are blue. They're law abiding and not a violation. It's just turn you into a better driver.
So the actual coachable events we have in the system, Justin, were 1,450 in the last 180 days.
Gotcha. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing. I think I'm over my time, but I'll try and answer any other questions. And if you guys want to, I think you guys had some specific questions about metrics for e-bikes and that kind of thing. If you want to put that into an email, we can try and get that to who can answer those questions.
Well, thank you so incredibly much. I have learned a ton. I really appreciate this, and I really appreciate your commitment, which is absolutely apparent, to getting these technologies out there and making the road safer. So
Thanks.
very grateful.
Can I tell you a quick story, a personal story? So my dad was a mechanic for 30 years, but briefly he stopped being a mechanic. He was a over-the-road truck driver for Swift, and he did that for about 6 months. He quit that job because he was the first one on the scene to another semi-truck over-the-road driver fell asleep in the mountains. My dad showed up, opened that door to see that mess. The guy didn't have a seatbelt on, and the unspoken insanity out there is that a lot of the over-the-road drivers, they lie about how long they're driving because they get paid per mile. And so I'm very motivated to make sure our drivers are safe, not just for the pedestrians out there, but so that they go home safe. That's why I got into this position. That's why I went into this field. And so to me, the money piece, first of all, it pays for itself. But second of all, I'm committed to the safety of the drivers out there, and obviously by extension, all the pedestrians, all the bicyclists. It's really important to me.
Well, thank you so very much. And if there are things you want us to talk with county manager or county
we can wield
board.
you as influence. We appreciate that.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, no, I mean, it's clear that you are so committed, and we are grateful, and we'd be happy to be a go-between at any moment. So thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. So next up, we have Brian Shelton.
I'm sorry. Do you guys want me to stay on, or are you kicking me off, or?
Totally up to you.
Okay. If it's okay, I'd like to just stay on. I'll turn my
please
camera off,
do.
but I'd like
Please
to hear
do.
the rest of you guys' stuff. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thanks.
And next up we have Brian Shelton, transportation planner, talking about the master transportation plan performance metrics. So Brian, it's yours.
Evening. Thanks, Cynthia. As Cynthia mentioned, my name is Brian Shelton, active transportation planner in the Department of Environmental Services and Transportation Planning and Capital Projects. I am loading my presentation. Is everybody able to see it? Ooh,
yep.
Excuse me. So this is a yearly endeavor that transportation planning undertakes to understand the progress that we are making on the master transportation plan goals in the bicycle element. And I will be sharing with you all the progress targets. I'll discuss how the data was collected, which bureau or department manages the projects, and other relevant information that we uncovered for each of the target. We're running a little short on time, so I'm going to ask that we hold all questions until the end of the presentation. And with that, I will just run through. There are 11 progress targets. I'm going to run through each one, and at the end, I'll have a large table with all the progress targets together, just to refresh your memory for any conversation. So our first progress target is to reduce bicycle crash rates per 10,000 residents by at least 55 per year. This data is collected by Arlington County Police Department and the Virginia Department of Transportation, and data is evaluated by the Vision Zero team. You can see our numbers here. We have had fewer crashes in 2024 than we have had in previous years, up to those pandemic years in 2020 and 2021. There are a number of projects. I'm sorry, I'll talk about the data first. The data in the chart does reflect the entire year. In total, there were 39 bicycle crashes reported. 3 of those bicycle crashes were reported as being severe or critical. Most of the accidents happened during the day from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. Very few crashes indicated that the drivers were distracted, tired, or intoxicated. In fact, the most common crash type was an angle crash, about 30 of 39 crashes that were reported. And most of the crashes, 27 crashes in fact, occurred within or adjacent to an intersection. There are 2 main programs that provide safety enhancements for bicyclists and pedestrians along street segments or at intersections. That's the Quick Build program, which Elwin is a part of. They implemented a number of improvements, as you can see here, some at 15th Street in South Fern, North Quincy Street, and 13th and 14th Streets, and Clarendon Boulevard in North Queen Street. These were to harden the sight distance to the intersection, preventing people from parking in that location, and again, just ensuring that bicyclists are visible to drivers. Other improvements delivered by the Vision Zero program include 2-stage turn box markings, green pavement markings. There will be some pilots upcoming that the Vision Zero program is going to initiate, again, for bicycle safety this year. Progress Target 2 is to provide bicycle safety education to at least 75% of Arlington Public Schools K through 12 students by 2025 and 100% by 2030. I need to bring that back over. This information is collected by Arlington Public Schools, primarily the health and physical education teachers. Most of the data comes from the Arlington Public Schools, it's 3rd grade. And give me 1 second. Kevin Treacle is my contact with Arlington Public Schools. He helps collect and gather all the data. We have had a growth in the number of students taking part in the bike education classes that are provided. Previously, classes, at least in 2023, were provided only to those 2nd grade students. However, there was an opportunity to expand the program to include students in the 1st through 5th grades. There are some limitations to the program. Only 11 schools can receive bicycles each year, so they do rotate from school to school. There are a limited number or limited inventory of stored bicycles used for the program. We also have a limited number of trailers to haul the bicycles from one school to the next, which does present some challenges. And other challenges in the program is consistent and reliable data reporting. So trying to understand how many students are riding to the school, a challenge for teachers in their homerooms to collect that data on a regular basis, just due to staff and time. What we have noted is that sometimes data reporting from APS can be inconsistent. Right now, all the schools are not yet reporting out on the number of students that are participating in the bicycle education program, and not all schools are reporting out on the number of students who are riding their bicycles to schools. Our progress target number 3 is to increase the number of adult participants in bicycle education and encouragement events, such as Bike to Work Day, by at least 5% per year. The data is collected by Bike Arlington, and you can notice in the data there's been a slight decline in participation from last year. However, participation is still up from the pandemic. Bike to Work Day, which is being held this Thursday, is still the most popular event that Bike Arlington hosts. Other community outreach programs attract thousands of participants. For example, Lighten Up Arlington, the Electric Ride Experience at the county fair, and then also the MLK Day of Service, the WNOD Trail Cleanup. Progress target number 4 is to complete 75% of the planned low traffic stress bicycle network by year 2025 and 90% by year 2030. This data is collected by the Transportation Planning and the GIS Department with support from Transportation Engineering Operations, as well as the Department of Parks and Recreation. As you can see, we're at about 61% of that of the planned low traffic stress bicycle network being completed. Some of the completed or the most recent completed projects include the protected bike lanes along North Quincy Street, those completed along North Lynn Street as part of the repavement program and undertaken by Vision Zero. Crystal Drive and Shirlington Road. There's also the shared use path at the Boundary Channel Drive, bridge over 4 Mile Run at Shirlington Road. And there's some upcoming projects as well. That along South Walter Reed Drive, the Complete Streets Project, 9th Street South, protected bike lanes, the Columbia Pike Bicycle Boulevards, and the Army Navy Drive will be upcoming in the next couple of years. Our progress target number 5 is to provide a low traffic stress bicycle route within a quarter mile of at least 80% of all households by year 2025 and 95% by 2030. This metric is generated using ArcGIS. What we do is we calculate the number of housing units within a quarter mile of a low traffic stress bicycle facility. For apartment buildings, these are also calculated as housing units, and so we can estimate the number of people who are living within those apartment units. As of 2024, about 81% of the low traffic stress bicycle routes, or 81% of the population has access to a low traffic stress bicycle route. And just to note that low traffic stress routes are defined as being shared use paths, protected bicycle lanes, buffered bicycle lanes, and bicycle boulevards, which meet the volume and speed requirements as defined by the All Ages and Abilities Guidelines in NACDO. Recently completed studies will improve the trail and shared use path network, which include the Custis Trail, the Arlington Boulevard Trail, and then also the project being undertaken by Capital Projects at the moment, which is the South George Mason Drive multi-use trail. Our progress target number 6 is to achieve an 8% bicycle commute mode share by the year 2025 and achieve 12% bicycle mode share by 2030. I don't really have any pictures to go along with this one. However, the data is collected with the help of ACCS, Arlington County Community Services, and we use the U.S. Census Bureau's American Community Survey, the walk and bike mode share. We don't yet have data for 2024, so this is a progress target that I report out for 2023, which is 1.7%. There are some challenges with this data that we use. For one, the American Community Survey only takes a snapshot of Arlington County and doesn't necessarily capture the full commute trend of everyone within the county. So we do think that this number is underreported or underrepresented of what we see in the road, and we haven't yet found a better way to capture how many bicyclists are commuting by bike. Our progress target number 7 is to achieve at least 10% of K through 12 students bicycling to school by year 2025 and achieve 15% by year 2030. Again, this is data that is collected by Arlington Public Schools. Kevin Treacle is working on collecting this data, or finding a better method to collect this data. Right now, they're taking tally counts twice a year, one in the fall and one in the spring. They take them in all the K through 12 classes just to get an idea of how many students are riding their bike to school on the days that the counts are taken. Again, the challenges with this is Kevin's noted that it can be disrupted to the homeroom classes, teacher time to take. I guess teachers need the time to take the tally, which again can be a little bit disruptive. Again, they're looking at other methods to report this figure out. Progress target number 8 is to increase the number of bicyclists counted on specific trail and street facilities by an average of at least 2% each year. This one, David Patton, who's also a planner in transportation planning and capital projects, he manages our counter program. So I go to him for this one. We selected the Custis Trail bicometer and the Custis Trail at Roslyn as the ideal locations for data collection due to the reliability of the data and the counters of it over time. As we've presented these numbers out to the BAC each year, this is the counter that we refer to, or these are the two counters that we referred to in previous presentations. We do have a slight increase from 2023 of 1%. We still haven't recovered from the pandemic numbers, where you can see the slight decline from 2020 to 2021. We're still below pre-pandemic numbers at just 270. I can't read that myself. 273,319 bicyclists. We have progress target number 9, and that is to reconstruct or repave at least 4% of all multi-use trail miles each year. There was a significant repaving and striping of the 4-mile run trail last year to serve as the detour for the closure of the W&OD trail at Sparrow Pond. That was, I think, the effort that DPR undertook. And just to note, in estimating past and current paving percentages, staff have used total trails in the county, which was counted as 52. Those are trails that are owned by others, bridges over the Potomac River, and trails not owned by the county. So I've included two numbers. The top number is the percent of all trails repaved. That's the 52-mile number. And then also the percent of county-owned trails that are repaved. That is the county number at 3%. And the total mileage owned and maintained by DPR is 35.2 miles. Some bigger efforts that they're looking at in the coming year is the widening of the 4-mile run trail from West Glebe down to the Arlington Ridge Bridge. So that'll be upcoming. They'll be widening as well. Progress target number 10 is to provide covered bicycle parking spaces at 100% of transit stations and schools by year 2030. Data is collected by Arlington Public Schools and Transportation Planning as well. To note, there are 11 metro stations in the county. 8 of those stations have at least Class 1 or Class 2 covered bike racks. There are 39 Arlington Public School facilities, and at the moment, 8 facilities have Class 1 covered bike racks. So right now, we're at about 32% of all the listed facilities having Class 1 or Class 2 covered bicycle parking. Just a note from last year, I did make a mistake in the estimation. I included bus and VRE stations as well in the tally, which is why you're going to see quite a higher number. Jillian, I have one more to go through, and then I'll take the question if that's all right. And then the last progress target that we have is to expand access and use of bike share with the number of unique users increasing by 5% annually. This data is collected by Bike Arlington, and in 2024, we have seen the highest usage in capital bike share since the program start. We saw a 53% increase from the time that we started taking data, and year over year, we saw a 65% increase, due in large part to the adoption of the Cosmo e-bike, which I have here on the screen. To date, there are about 529 Cosmo e-bikes within the Arlington fleet. There's been a 173% year-over-year increase in e-bike usage alone. That's within the capital bike share, and it excludes the micromobility companies that operate within Arlington County. We're finding that riders prefer the e-bikes over the standard bicycle, and 24% of the Cabby riders within the county use the Cabby for All program, which subsidize rides for people who are not able to afford them. And so with that, we're at the last slide. This is just the overview of the progress targets. Those that have been marked in green, those have been achieved. Those in blue, we are still working on, or there's been a slight decline from the previous year. So Jillian, if you want to start questions, I can take yours first.
I have some other questions, but the one that jumped out on transit stations was why bus stations were not included in those, like
Right.
Shirlington and Pentagon.
Right. That was my assumption in the definition. And so I had to go back and do some digging from previous presentations. They do not include the transit stations as well as the Shirlington station. So just to keep everything consistent, the presentation consistent, I left that note in there and then just removed that figure from the chart.
So you've taken what the board passed as transit stations and just, or DES took what the board passed as transit stations and changed it to metro stations?
I'm not aware that the board, I'm not aware that that was the definition that was provided by the board. I was working off of previous presentations that were given to the BAC, which again didn't include the bus transit stations as well as the Shirlington station in their estimation. So again, to just keep everything consistent.
But this is about the board adopted master transportation plan, right?
This is.
So the board adopted transit stations and DES has just said that's only bus.
Metro. So from,
sorry, that doesn't include bus.
No, so from the previous presentation, so from 2018 to 19, all the way to 2022, bus transit stations were excluded from the tally. So right, that's why I've included that note, and to just maintain consistency of what's been tracked from the previous years, we've left it as metro.
That's just, it seems to me like there was a mistake and you're just perpetuating the mistake instead of fixing it.
Well, I can provide a note and correct it.
Thanks.
Dana?
Yeah, while you're on target 10, you should break out the school, roll it up if you have to, but break out the schools and the metro station, because, they're completely independent. They're making their own decisions. And unless Arlington's going to step in and do it, unless you guys are going to step in and do it, those decisions are going to be made independently.
All right, thanks. Cynthia.
Hey, thank you. Very, very interesting. And I love covered bike parking, just for the record. And I hope the schools in particular all get it soon. But I just had a one little question on the percentages on target number 6, I believe it was. With the 1.7, the 1.7% mode share. Just when is this done? Oh wait, it released in September. Like when are we talking about? Because like in January I was pretty much by myself on the roads. Whereas like right now everybody's biking. So I'm just curious how do you get to the 1.7, or is this an average of the whole year?
This is one of the progress targets that I have issue with myself. So each year the American Community Survey sends out a notice. It selects a certain number of residents living within a jurisdiction, and it requests that they fill out a survey. This was the first year that I was able to do that, and just being a bit of a nerd myself, I was quite pleased. But they don't count the entire county in our case. They take a small snapshot of the county to estimate the mode share. So the mode share of who commutes by what mode, right? It's not representative of the entire county as a whole. I look at our counter data. I look at the cabby data that we have. I look at ride report data, and I see numbers that would probably be indicative of a higher mode share than what we're receiving from the American Commute Survey, or the American Community Survey. So again, that's done every year. It's a federal program, and yeah, we don't get that data until September of 2025. So it does report on the lower end of the mode share. Again, I'm still trying to figure out what is the best way to estimate the number of people who are commuting by bike. And right now, this is what we have.
Huh, that is really weird. Okay, thank you very much.
Steve.
Yeah, thanks. So I think along those lines, what might be, I mean, what is useful about that is, and I would agree, I don't think that the community survey actually does a good job of really capturing bike commuting, because I don't think it asks the question very well. It's either like you are or you're not a bike commuter, and that's really not a lot of bike commuters are like. There might be good weather commuters and not in the winter, and that's okay. I mean, but it doesn't count them well. But what I do think is probably useful is, since we are using that, trend lines are useful. Is the number going up or down? So if it's going up, that would be, I think, indicative of whatever the real number is probably is also going up, or vice versa. So in any case, I would, if in the future we were able to find a better way, I would encourage us to sort of overlap and show, like, what it was shown compared to the past using the old methodology, and then we have whatever a new methodology might be. Anyway, just a thought there. And I guess my other question has to do with the actual like lack of success. Like most of these indicators, targets, we're falling woefully short of, and I'm not sure like is anything changing because of that? Are there any actions being taken saying, whoa, we're falling woefully short, we need to step it up? Or is it just we just report the numbers and oh well?
I think it's a mix of both. There's only so much that we can really do on our end. And some of the progress targets, for example, the safety progress target, I think really speaks to the effort that the Vision Zero team and transportation planning have been committing to providing infrastructure that meets that all ages and abilities guidelines, which does see what we'd like it to see, right? We'd like it to see an increase in ridership, especially amongst those low confidence riders. Other progress targets, I'm not sure are accurately capturing the work that we can do to get more people on bikes. And I think it's just, it's a data point that we can report out, but I don't think there's really any action behind those progress targets themselves. I do think seeing all the progress targets together. So again, if we go back to that end slide, I think we're at the point where we're seeing this trend of post-pandemic ridership. I think a lot of the numbers that we saw pre-pandemic were related to a regular commute pattern. People were going to the office 5 days a week. But even Arlington County Commuter Services, which has updated their plan, they're starting to recognize that not only is the commuter an important target, but we also have to look at other people who ride their bike for other needs. For example, people who are riding their bike to go grocery shopping, to visit their friends, to go to an appointment, or for recreation, to go to a park, things like that. Right now, those progress targets capture mainly the commuter. And so I think if we start to expand out and think of who else is riding their bike and how do we capture that data, we might see a different story pan out. And I think these are questions that y'all need to start thinking of as we approach, this part in Arlington Transportation's future planning process, where we will be developing policies in the next couple of months. So how, from your experience with these progress targets, what do you think might shift in order to produce different results, or results that we can really sit down, discuss, and say, hey, we can really do this to get more people on their bike?
Yeah, I mean, I only see one of these that's specific to commuters, right? So the crash rates, that's not commuters. Safety education for students, that's not commuters. Adult participations in education, that's not commuters. The bicycle network, that's not commuters. I mean, so yeah, I agree that the commuting patterns have changed, but I think there's only one of these that's very directly about commuters. So yeah, sure, there might be a good way to to rethink that particular one, but I still think that most of these other ones seem to be, by and large, falling short. And I guess I would just hope that the fact that that's true would spur more activity, to actually reach the plan's targets, which were adopted by the board and are the expectation of our community.
Well, again, there's only so much that within the Department of Environmental Services and Transportation Planning that we, can enforce or can act on. And I think those that we are. However, there are a few, for example, in Arlington Public Schools, I have no say over their program. I have no say in how it's carried out. I have no say in their budget. So again, it's there's only so
So
much
that's
that
not entire.
there's
So,
not
so
there's
there is
not
a
so much
joint
that I can do.
transportation. Not there's not power, but there is a joint transportation committee. And like, has it been presented to that committee that APS is falling short on the targets?
It's a conversation I've had with Kevin Treacle, and that's been about it. Kevin Treacle and Catherine Lynn.
But not JCTC.
No.
So, I mean, so that's one thing that could happen, right? It could be brought to JCTC to say there's a target that we're not meeting.
Yeah, it could be. Any other questions?
Is there something we can do to help with that?
I mean, you could facilitate that. JCTC is not something that's on my calendar at the moment.
It's not public, so I don't know how we can facilitate that. I mean, I'm fairly certain that Wei and Christine are DES representatives to it.
Mm-hmm.
Could you reach out to them to get it on the agenda?
Yeah. Let's see what their thoughts are.
And then, a lot of these targets, I'm on Fiscal Affairs Advisory Commission, and I'm sort of surprised every year that these targets are not mentioned in the budget at all, either in the CIP or the budget, as like proposed spending is to help us achieve this, or in any of these targets. As someone who is involved in the effort to update the bicycle element, the targets that are here are a result of a negotiation of staff requesting targets that are things they could measure. So I think everybody at the time recognized the shortcomings of the commuter metric, but it is a metric that we have, and it's a fairly consistent metric over time that we get. So that's one of the reasons it made it on the final list. But there are a lot of metrics, and none of them seem to end up in at least the budgeting process, which makes me wonder how far up are they going? Is this presentation that you're doing for us just sort of a checkbox exercise, like update the presentation and then it doesn't go any further? Or is this getting, is this information being reported up to management? Is Greg Emanuel hearing, hey, we're really not meeting the targets that are in the bicycle element?
I have not made this presentation to Greg Emanuel.
Or, I'm not trying to depose you and ask just this very specific question. I'm saying, like, this idea, hey, we're not meeting what the board adopted. Is that being discussed around DES?
It is, at least within transportation planning and capital projects. My manager is aware of the presentation. She reviews it, we discuss it. I think there is an effort to do our best in meeting the progress targets, especially when it does come to the build out of the low stress network. In regards to other progress targets, especially related to K through 12, I think we're kind of trying to figure out how to work the relationship with Arlington Public Schools. But again, this is familiar to us within transportation planning and capital projects.
Well, so obviously there's, for specifically the stuff having to do with the school system, there's JCTC.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like a resource that's not tapped. If there's other things that you guys think are outside of your specific wheelhouse, but should be dealt with elsewhere in the county, like, is that getting raised? Is it getting escalated? And then I have another question about the the low stress bike network.
Just before we go on, I just want to say we're quite over time. So if we can be as succinct as possible, because we still have one more presentation, which is Dana.
Okay. Well, then I'll just say that if there's stuff that DES is having a hard time engaging with, we are one resource. You could come to us and say, hey, we're not meeting these targets, and could you help us think through ways to meet the targets? But also there's lots of other resources aside from us and aside from, just capital planning within DES that would be helpful to meet these targets. But on the low stress bicycle network, I'm always surprised to see these numbers. And in the past, we've talked about what counts as being a low traffic stress bicycle network. So for example, Quincy between Washington and 66, there are some protected bike lanes, but it's not the entire stretch. How does that count in the numerator there?
So we estimate, or we tally, each of the shared use paths, protected bicycle lanes, buffered bicycle lanes, and bicycle boulevards. We don't really have bicycle boulevards that meet the low traffic stress definition yet. But those are brought out in the map. And then within that map, we put that buffer around the bike facility and then estimate how many housing units are within that buffer. So if the facility exists, it counts.
But like Quincy, where you've put something in that's not, that doesn't meet NACTO standards.
There is the new, I can't remember if they're the protected bike lanes or the buffered bike lanes that went in around the school there that were recently
Only
completed.
on the west side of the street. Only on the west side of the street, and not for the entire length of the, not, the last block before Washington doesn't have anything.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys chose not to protect students, but it looks like on this map you're counting it. Is that correct? Is that?
We are counting it. Yes. I can't.
But you didn't do it. You're counting the block that's not protected as being low traffic stress.
We are counting the facility that is on the block as being low traffic stress.
but it's just a regular old bike lane.
There's a protected bike lane that's near the school that was installed this last year.
No, but not between 14th Street and Washington Boulevard. I live right here. I lead a bike bus on like right here every Friday. There's no protection between 13th Street and Washington Boulevard.
Okay, I'll take another look.
And there's nothing on the east side of the street until you get to right before the Buck property.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like you're counting things that aren't protected because they're protected part of the way, when actually it should be exactly the reverse. There are lots of people who won't send their kids on that bike lane because one block is protected. Is not protected. Like it looks like you're counting it if any of it is protected, when most people, the reasonable way to think about this stuff is it's not low stress if anything is not protected. Right? I mean, you agree with that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe if we could see a map of what you guys are considering to be low stress, we can point out places where we're, maybe miss the mark.
Okay.
And Quincy's the prime example because it's not just there. There's lots of places where, like, south of Wilson in front of Tonko Bamba, it's not protected. And so it's actually very high stress. But then it's protected and it's lovely. But as a route, people look at that as a high stress route because of the one block that's not protected.
This is all very worthwhile. At the same time, I think that we had better move on since we have Arlington's transportation future on the agenda next. So thank you
Thanks,
so
y'all.
very much. And we can certainly continue these discussions offline. And move right along to Dana.
Okay, as the backup for Mike, who was out of town in April when the meeting was held, I stepped in, and basically the last meeting was tweaking the goals, and I'm not going to get too into too much depth about that. It was basically an extra, and I'll apologize for my cynicism. It was an exercise in group editing, where we added words to make things seem better or more aspirational or whatever. The issue that I came out of with that, and I sent the BAC the observations that I sent to the county today, is exactly what we just finished talking about with with Brian's presentation. It's we came up with these aspirational goals, and then the same effort wasn't applied to actually the implementation. And so many things that we've my personal position is so many things get thrown into the too hard pile. So I suggested that there need to be a broad goal of actually making it work, implementation broadly, where we look at implementation, enforcement, evaluation, and exception management. We should make, there are going to be instances where exceptions will have to be granted to whatever document we finally come up with, the county finally comes up with. That shouldn't be either automatic or easy. It should go up to Greg Emanuel or the county manager or the county board to say, yes, we are going to deviate here. Because I think we've all been bureaucrats long enough to know that when it goes up to 3 or 4 levels above us, we've worked really hard to solve the problem and not send it 3 or 4 levels above us. So those are the issues. Those are the points that I'd like, I would like to make. I sent them in as my personal comments. I sent my comments to the BAC. So if you guys want to chime in as well, go for it. But but what we're seeing is the same thing that we just saw with Brian's presentation. Because it was convenient, we're talking about households versus people. ACS count, can do households just fine. It can do people just fine, but those aren't the same thing. So we need to spend as much time developing the evaluative components and the process for actually implementing it, getting the fire department to say this is how it will work, getting the police department to say this is how we will enforce this and make it work, as opposed to having an aspirational goal that says we're going to have bike lanes that are wonderful and nobody will ever park in them or block them. And then every time you ask for support to get them unblocked, it becomes difficult. So the county is, we're not getting a lot done now because we're spending time developing the transportation future. This is the ideal time, the only time where we're going to have that many calories to throw at developing this process. So we have to be able to do the implementation with the same degree of intensity and vigor. If we leave it up to everybody to do the implementation once we get the plan done, it's likely not going to be as effective. And I'm pretty much done, Cynthia. You're back on schedule.
Bravo. Who has questions? Jillian.
So thanks, Dana. I think you make really good points. I'll just say that I struggle a little bit because there are some practicalities here where, and I'll give you an example in a second, but where locking us into something in a document can lead to unintended consequences in a way that just aren't great. I do think that we do have a pretty good model for doing this, which is what we used for the public spaces master plan, which was the parks planning process. And they have specifically an implementation committee. So they have people whose job, we meet quarterly and we say, what's going on? How are we implementing it? And we go through the metrics and we ask these questions. And again, we meet regularly to talk specifically about how are we implementing the plan. I think it's working